I grew up on a dairy farm, and I didn't think actively that I would be a farmer. I thought in terms of something professional or whatever. I tried being an engineer for 6 months, and it was torture for me. I just had a hell of a time spending 8 hours in an office with nothing but blackboards, had no windows. And then when I got back into farming, I felt such a great sense of relief because I enjoyed it, and I was just having a ball. I went to production credit and asked for $2,000 to pay my first month's bills before the first milk check came in. And gosh, I wish I only owed $2,000 now. Shall we move in here and
sit down?
Go to work?
Okay, good. Well, you got some big plans, huh?
Well, I guess you've been briefed on them.
Yeah, man. I thought that's what we probably ought to go over here before we get everything all buttoned up. And
the first year I had, well, I had a real difficult time getting the money together to buy the place.
Here's your financial statement.
Really, all I wanted was a 1 or 2 year note from PCA for about $30,000.
Our loan policy.
Some feedback I got at the time was that that's quite a bit of debt for a young guy like you or something like that.
Close.
And it was a lot of debt. I think what you need to get started today is basically a lot of drive, just willingness to do whatever it takes. It could be any number of things. I could envision somebody getting started on 5 acres with no capital. I know it can be done. I mean, I don't think there's some arbitrary figure like 100,000 or 200,000 or $500,000 you need to get started in farming. Well, I remember my first impressions of the place really well, and I remember particularly Fred was clearly in charge of it. But my first thought was that I would never be able to keep Fred on here because Fred's going to have all these ideas about how things are to be done on the place, and I just don't want to encounter a lot of resistance. So you could start with that wire there and
take it clear over, John, to that box up there and put it in the box and tighten it. And bring a cord out from there and leave about this much of a pigtail and come to that and come to this and then you need a box there to go down to the switch. Things had changed so much and had taken so much off of me when Peter took over here that I was so relieved and I just couldn't brag enough about him. See, how many switches do you want?
Well, one switch is
okay, right here by the desk. I've been the happiest I've ever been in my life since I've been here, since Peter's been here. Because he's made all the decisions, he's made everything, and all I have to do is ask and I get it, you know.
Yeah, that should stay on there, shouldn't it?
Well, it goes up here, see, and then there's a clamp goes in here. Just put the 2 clamps on it.
Okay. Well, maybe that's the way to do it.
And see, this, you got to remember that this is an old hop yard. See, and it was let down from generation to generation. Well, all of these people, these neighbors and one thing or another, well, they kind of resented a 30-year-old man coming in here. And, well, how can he afford a place like this? I think it's the most wonderful thing in the world that he can borrow like that. Really, I do, because for this reason, anybody in the United States is going to make it. Peter is.
Started out with 400 acres here that was basically raw land, and we've improved the land. We've put in a good deal of drainage. We've put in underground irrigation. We've added wheel lines. We've cleared some brush and trees that were cutting up some of the fields. We've basically developed it just about to the maximum as far as the ground itself is concerned. what we've done is we've changed this place into a fairly intensive kind of a farming operation from basically a grain with some row crops. And we've also planted crops that are the berry crops, for example, that we are doing, or that are longer term kinds of things and that require more intensive farming techniques and more money. Basically, anything you want to do has a problem with it. If it doesn't have a problem, everybody wants to do it. So you've got to do something that most other people don't care to do because there's some real factor in there that makes it difficult to do. In any case, I've never felt an unwillingness to take on something like that just because it's difficult. The cannery hasn't said a word about whiteberries. They've said a lot about caps, and they've said a lot about rot. You're going to have to warn the kids that when they go in, they're going to have flaps rejected until they get all the rot out. Okay, this here, there's no question about that.
Yeah.
It's a huge berry and it's got a big spot on it.
Yeah.
That has to come out. Could you please just take these caps off? Just set them down right there.
And you will give me a full crate?
Yep, I sure will. The strawberries are probably the hardest because of the requirement for huge amounts of labor all at one time. So we had to actively recruit school kids to get them picked. It was a tremendous hassle.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Phil. Good to see you.
Got everything under control here?
I couldn't say that, actually.
This looks like you've got a 3-ring circus going.
It is. It's at least 3 rings. I think I made an error in judgment about when we started to pick. Last year we started a little too soon. Got a lot of green berries, so I thought this year we'd wait a little bit longer. And then that bad weather hit us.
And you got a little ahead of it.
They got a lot ahead of us. It's bad enough. I think we've left 30, 40 ton of rotten berries here in the field, and we're taking dock at the cannery. But it could have been worse. I don't feel the slightest bit defensive about using 11-year-olds. In fact, except to the extent that maybe my sanity is in question. There's certainly no danger of exploiting these kids out there. They have too much fun for that. When I first started out, I had to be the boss, and I had to have virtually absolute control. Well, that's much less important to me now than it was then. I've had to loosen that control in recent years as the farm becomes more complex. This year in particular, where we're starting this produce operation, I've had to loosen it even further.
This is an area of management you haven't had to face before.
Which is?
Having somebody keep records for you of a separate enterprise.
Right. It's a kind of a new experience for me because I've always taken primary responsibility for every little part of it.
That's where your sister's supposed to.
That's where she's supposed to
take over.
Heron is H-A-R-O-N?
H-E-R-O-N.
H-E-R.
What happened on this produce thing was that I went in with a proposal of what I wanted to grow, how I wanted to fund it. They didn't like it. They didn't like the whole produce thing because they felt that a produce operation required a tremendous amount of management, and that it was more than should be tried to be done by one person. So what happened is I said, all right, I'm going to have my sister, Grace, responsible for it. I'm going to try to just get away from it and not do it.
Is that it? Yep. 51 cents.
So they said, okay, we'll do it.
We have a lot of admiration for what you've done, and we admire the fact that you're always hustling us, too. Always wanting us to do a little bit more than we want to do.
I've been really aware of the difference between me and Peter all spring, really. I mean, he can't do things that aren't profitable, and that's why he's been so successful. I mean, I definitely want to do a good job and I want it to work out, but I'm not, but I also really want people to enjoy coming out here, and I want them to enjoy getting a good deal on things. If I were doing this on my own, it would probably be a dismal failure.
Well, I think it's ridiculous to lose money on something just for the fun of doing it.
It's not fun to do this.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, I think it's not worth your time to go out and fool with somebody to pick them like this. And if we have a risk of throwing a half of them or any significant fraction of them away, or giving them away, I don't want to do it. One of the biggest problems I have with people that work for me is my expectations, which are very high. And I'm not a very good rewarder. I'm just not. And I'm a much better criticizer. I'm a lot easier now than I used to be, if that's any consolation. Hi, boys.
Hi, Peter. Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
What took you so long?
Oh, you know, just a few details.
Not by the hair, my chinny chin chin. I'm a poor little sheep to the door and let me in and set that way in a sway in the redwood.
You guys want to eat dinner?
And then I'll huck it up there and climb in the wrong little house.
Are you going to eat? You just wanted to finish that?
Yeah.
What about you, Jamie? Let's eat, huh?
Okay.
Well, did Grace tell you I went around and visited some produce out?
I was going to ask you about that. What came of that?
I went to Vista.
Vista what?
Vista Market.
Oh, Vista Market.
See, they're really good because they're locally owned and they're not
Oops.
big, so they don't have a big central
Mm-hmm.
warehousing operation.
Too much. Well, yeah, a little bit less.
Let's see.
Is it sweet enough? Okay, go ahead and put a little more in there.
Can I do it now?
You want to do it some?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll help you hold it. Hello? Yeah, well, I'll have it on the radio in the morning at 4:45 if we do have to cancel because of rain. Yeah, I'll call the weather and take a good look at it at 4 or so and call in about 4:30, and if we do have to cancel, it'll be on at 4:30. Okay, see you in the morning. Bye.
How's the mint? Do you have yours contracted or any part of it? We're a little bit worried about that. I think if you get a chance to contract some of that.
I've tried.
Yeah, you
I've
haven't
tried.
been able to
No.
yet.
And the talk has been, and what it's worth, I don't know. The talk has been that the market will open at contract price, which is around 13.5, I think.
Talk I heard yesterday was maybe $12.
Is that right?
But talk is talk.
Yeah, well,
But are the mint buyers coming out here looking at your mint?
they've been around. Yeah.
Well, I think that I'd keep them coming.
His talk about price of $12 is considerably different than what I was looking at of 13 or 13.50 a pound. And that'll make a lot of difference to us. 10,000 pounds of mint oil is $1 a pound, makes a lot of difference. You can just see the oil in here. Good heavens, I can't believe how much oil there is in there. Each one we leave on the ground, it's gone. I think we'll go back and try to cut it the opposite direction and pick some of this stuff up. Last year we had our equipment except for the still, and we pulled our mint trailers over to a neighbor and hooked onto his still, and he distilled them for us. The decision to make the still took a lot longer to come to, and it came as a result of deciding to plant more mint, and the two really went together. Plant more mint, you build a small distillery. Everything should be ready to go. All right. Well, back to the drawing boards. When we started up the distillery a couple of days ago, there were a number of unanswered questions that developed. So the best way of answering these questions was to go over to Carl's and to talk to him and look at his distillery.
Do you do everything here really slowly, kind of? I mean, you don't put a big charge to it and then shut it off or any of that kind of stuff, do you?
How do you handle these separators? How do you control the liquid, the oil level and the water level? How do you get the oil out? And the redistill mechanism, how much steam do you put into it? How do you decide when to put more and put less steam?
When the oil is running, you're going to come up with nice, great big puddles, so the whole top will be pretty much all oil. As the tub is cooked out, those puddles will decrease until you get to the point where it's just a few broken drops, and it's it's an old farmer's wisdom or whatever that when it gets to be about the size of a dime,
if you added them all together,
then you'd be isn't that sophisticated?
I'm not at all worried that we'll get it done. One guy, the way I've got it figured, one guy can chop, transport the trailers back and forth. The other guy runs the still. It'll be a two-man operation. And we intend to go 24 hours a day, and I think we can do it in 5 days. Just keep them going.
Well, that's your clearance. Your sinus is out. What? I think there's sufficient oxygen, but there's the essence of peppermint. Very strong.
The peppermint still is working all right?
Yeah, it's distilled our crops, and you saw the receipt for the check.
Yeah. So I'd say the result of this last year is certainly verified pretty much your ability to do what you said you were going to get done.
I hope you...
Even though we didn't let you do everything you said that you wanted to do.
Well, I think I kind
off
of...
a little.
Well, yeah, I don't think I had to back down too much. I mean, I feel like I got to do most of what I wanted to.
Good. Well, then that kind of gets us down to this other deal, doesn't it?
We've sort of been looking for a farm a long time, and over the last 4 years, there really hasn't been much.
And I can't say honestly at this point that I've decided, no matter, even if you said okay, I can't say that I've decided to say I want to buy it or But if there were any kind of indication that you could give me about...
Well, the thing I think you need to look at is where your financial position is going. But you're going to owe, when you get through with this deal, it looks to me like you're going to owe about $1 million.
It's a hard business. It's such a tremendous continuing demand on time and effort. You can always do a better job. And I think I function better with a little more intermittent pressure. I can take a lot of pressure for a period of time, but then I need a recovery period. And I need a planning period. I do well when I have time to organize my thoughts and my program and think about it and plan it and not just have to be in it all the time. If I'm in it, I tend to get too closed off and lose perspective. That I didn't belong as an engineer, that I belonged as a farmer. And that's something that's really carried me through a lot of stuff, knowing that it's a free choice and it's something I really want to do.